Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio. You can hear every weekday on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM at 4:30 Eastern. Let's talk about gene editing right now. And this is a topic, it feels like we have been in the process of trying to have this approved in Canada for quite some time. It has been a lengthy process, and we're in that final stages, and we're going to hear all about it right now from Krista Thomas. She is VP of Seed, Innovation and Trade Policy with Canada Grains Council. Krista, great to chat with you.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Okay. We've launched and when I say we, I mean the Canadian government has launched the third and final consultation of this regulatory framework for gene editing in Canada. What is this consult on specifically, and give us some of the timelines?
Sure. So if you are a plant breeder and you develop a new variety in Canada, you potentially have to go through 3 different pre-market safety assessments. There's one at Health Canada on food safety. That piece was completed in 2021. And then there are 2 pieces at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, one on environmental safety, that was completed last year. And now we're in the final piece focusing on livestock, animal and livestock feed safety.
Now, when I hear livestock and feed safety, if we've passed the Health Canada human safety component, I would think this would be, I don't want to say a lower bar, but this is a hurdle I would not be that concerned about. Or am I getting way too far ahead of myself?
Well, it's really good to see that there is a high level of alignment between the different areas. I think that there are, when it comes to livestock feed, because it has to be clear for people who are formulating feeds what the composition of some of their ingredients are. And you've got animals who are eating the same diet for their entire lifespan. So the Livestock Feed Division looks at things a little bit different from Health Canada. But in all 3 cases, the reviewers have acknowledged that gene editing does not add any additional safety risks or concerns beyond conventional breeding. And what really matters is how you're changing the product at the end of the day. Okay,
so how long does this consult go for? Mid-November?
I believe it closes November 27th.
Okay. Once it closes, then what happens? What does the process look like to get this across the finish line? Now, this is something I know Canada Grains Council and other organizations have been really pushing for this to happen. So what does the timeline look like post-consult?
Well, that will be up to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, but we're really eager to have this last piece in place. When we have these 3 pieces completed, it's going to provide clarity for plant breeders. They'll be able to know if the products they develop need pre-market regulation, pre-market safety assessment or not. And that's really important because without that clarity, it's difficult to get funding for research. It encourages investment, to maybe move outside of Canada to the US or other places where there is better clarity. And it means that we really can't start introducing these products in Canada, so farmers won't have access until these 3 pieces are in place. So our hope is that the Livestock Feed Division can review the comments that it gets quickly and move on to the final publication of their guidance as soon as possible.
What is how encompassing, or what is the scope of livestock? Is of course, I think cattle and pork and sheep, chicken. How far out does this go?
Oh gosh, you'd have to check with the regulators on the exact definition, but it covers all of the. Well, from my perspective, from the Canada Grains Council, pretty much any crop we grow can end up in livestock feed. So this is an important piece because pretty much any new variety can end up in livestock feed. So we need to have that clarity about whether this regulatory approval is needed or not.
So who's providing feedback or participating in this kind of consult from a livestock feed safety perspective?
Well, the consultation is open to the public. So it's open to stakeholders across Canada, and the Canada Grains Council, representing We have a wide membership that includes the seed innovation sector, grain growers in Canada, all of the major field crop commodity associations and exporters. So we will be providing comments on the document as well from the perspective of our membership.
So let's just sort of fast forward here. Let's suppose that this is all given the green light. Gene editing at that point, after this third and final consultation, then gene editing would be allowed in Canada, and basically that would be the green light, or are there additional stages past this?
Well, it depends on how gene editing is being used and how the plant is being changed. So what the livestock feed consultation document and the two pieces that are finalized have said is that if you have a new plant variety and you introduce foreign DNA into that plant, so you've made a transgenic plant or a GMO, that type of plant always needs pre-market safety assessments. So you're always going to go and talk to the regulator before that plant can be, sold as food or grown as a crop. When it comes to everything else, so conventional plant breeding and gene-edited plant varieties, the regulators have laid out types of end goals for the plant breeder, types of plant breeding outcomes that they think could pose a risk and would require an assessment. So for human food, that's things like, if you were ever to increase a toxin or an anti-nutrient, or if you were to make a change to the nutritional profile of a crop that is so big, you'd be bumping into a dietary upper or lower limit. That's something that always needs a pre-market assessment, whether it was gene edited or bred through conventional means. So we'll have that clarity. Under the system today, it's not always clear what types of breeding objectives or goals need to come in. So there's been a lot of confusion. We've had cases where plant breeders have approached the regulator to ask, are they regulated? Are they a novel plant? And they don't get an answer for months and months sometimes. So hopefully we're removing that problem and providing greater certainty for the researchers in Canada.
Yeah, I would think on this topic, the more clarity, the better. So people know what the path is for them to follow in order to pursue product development. If you can't get answers and there isn't clarity and maybe there's mixed messages as we try to, work our way through the regulatory obstacles, that like to me, that just speaks of slowing the whole process down. And when we talk about, being competitive on the global stage, we want as much clarity as possible so people know what that path is. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, 100%, Sean. And, Canada, it's my personal opinion, but I think Canada is developing the best regulatory framework for gene editing in the world, because we're maintaining that product-based approach, but also bringing this clarity. And we're also bringing new transparency tools to the process as well. But when we look at what's happening in the world, many countries are ahead of us. Argentina was the first country to have clear guidance for gene editing back in 2015. Japan finished in 2018. Many countries around the world have either finalized their guidance or they're right along Canada in working through that now.
Yeah, my understanding is Canada at one time was kind of was sort of the leader in addressing this, and through whether it's feet dragging or just being slow, maybe it's there's been an election cycle, whatever excuse you want to use. My understanding is we're kind of playing some catch up here, but there's an opportunity for us to also come out with some of the leading guidelines in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Canada has always had a leadership role in regulating new plant varieties because we've always had a science-based, product-based approach. And we were really excited when the Health Canada guidance came out in 2021, if I'm remembering correctly. So it would have been nice to have had all three pieces completed around the same time, but we're just glad that we're getting there now.
Okay. Canada Grain Council's perspective, what do you see as the big benefits here once gene editing is fully allowed in the country and we can see some of those benefits? What can we expect?
Well, our members have kind of two goals for gene editing. So the first is we want to have a regulatory environment in Canada that enables innovation so that investment will come here, so that our plant breeders can develop more resilient seed varieties more efficiently and get those tools into the hands of our farmers. But at the same time, we also recognize market access is important as well. And that if our key markets, will not accept gene editing, that we won't be able to grow those products in Canada. So that's where the transparency piece really comes in, and making sure that we're going to be able to continue to deliver market choice as these products begin to enter into the field.
Well, here's where we're crossing into both your responsibilities, seed innovation, but also trade policy. Mm-hmm. Is there any concern out there that if we are, for example, everyone picks on wheat, so let's just pick on that one for a second. If there was going to be gene-edited wheat varieties, do we have to worry that some markets, some key markets, will say, no, thank you, Canada? Is that a big worry for the industry?
It's been a very important part of our discussions going back a number of years now. So we could think, for example, about a food manufacturer in one of our markets, let's say Japan. That manufacturer might in the future want to buy grain that was not gene edited, or they might simply need to know which gene edited varieties they're buying, because they're going to have to make sure that imported grain has met the Japan's regulatory requirements. So we need transparency through the system. And we've worked very closely with organizations like Seeds Canada and CropLife Canada to make sure we have the tools in place to have those discussions. So that means, no surprises, that there'll be early consultation with the value chain before something is introduced. And if we're talking about a crop like wheat that, doesn't have innovative varieties in cultivation, that lead time is going to need to be long, most likely, to have those discussions. And it also means sort of full participation in Health Canada's transparency initiatives and industry-led transparency initiatives as well, so that farmers, when they buy seed, will be able to know if the variety they're purchasing was developed using gene. Farmers will have that information, and it can be passed through the value chain to end users and markets who are going to require it.
Great stuff. Well, Krista, appreciate it. There's still a lot of work to be done on this file. Indeed, I'm sure it's going to keep you and some of your colleagues there at Canada Grains Council very, very busy. This is just one of the consults that are currently underway that the government is doing right now that seem to all be overlapping here and have November timelines on them. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.